Good evening, this is Brother Bro here. I'm at the Cannes Film Festival. I'm going to review Two Prosecutors. This film was directed by Sergei Loznitsa, a Ukrainian filmmaker who has an expansive filmography of both documentary and fiction pieces, often exploring Eastern Europe in World War II or post-World War II era, especially the USSR. And this film really explores how fascism operates at both a procedural and individual level. And it's obvious that the writer-director understands how these systems work very deeply. The film is very play-like in that many of the scenes go on for as long as 30 minutes. It also really takes its time and is quite slow-paced. I think it was a mistake to program this at 10 p.m. I think audiences would have enjoyed this more if they were a little more awake. I admit that if I were not caffeinated during this screening, I also would have struggled more with it. But I think if you have the right amount of alertness, it's not a boring film at all. I found it very engrossing, and I think the dialogue is just so interesting and layered and really reveals how fascism works just through the many exchanges between the lawyer and the various assets of the Stalinist Russia. This film is about a prosecutor who is intent on investigating allegations of abuse in a Soviet prison. And just to watch many of the Soviets in this film stammering their way through their statements without really any moral principle, without any grounding, with such a deep concern for whether what they're saying is safe and whether they're being loyal, is in itself a history lesson. Often the slowness is justified in how it makes a statement about the Soviet Union and its procedures itself. For starters, delaying a procedure is a tactic to avoiding dealing with any repercussions. The director captures eerie and intense silences and empty spaces, and I think kind of imbues them with a haunting quality because we know what exists in a space of silence. What is not said and what is forbidden to say is so critical to fascism's grip on all parts of society. It's also impossible for me as a resident of the United States to not see parallels to the Trump administration's own flirtations and adjacency to fascism. And while I don't think the US is emblematic of the total control that the Soviet Union had over its people, certainly not in this present moment, it is certainly introducing some more elements and erecting some of the pillars that fascism thrives on. And I don't think the film is trying to call that out. I don't think it's trying to be about the US. That would be very American of me to think this is about me. But I think it speaks to the film's historical accuracy and attention to detail that we can identify these aspects, and it speaks to the importance of telling a story like this and in keeping history alive. And if anything, this film keeps fascism in view for how it was and how it operated. Something about it felt current. It felt like this can happen again, and I absolutely believe it could. And if the comparisons I'm making to the US elude you, I'm really referring to the Trump admin's disregard for due process, which, even though it's only being applied to non-citizens at this moment, seems like it could easily be a pretext to apply it more broadly. And also the way sycophants have seemingly intruded every aspect of government. Loyalists, people who only speak out of the side of their mouth that the Trump administration would want to approve of. Not willing to say anything against it, willing to lie. The most terrifying part about fascism is the idea that one day we could just be in it and not even realize it because the temperature has been raising so slowly for such a long time. And I think what a film like this can do is the audience member may juxtapose where they're at with where this film is. And if we find that we're anywhere on the spectrum of that to wherever we are now, we need to be afraid. We need to realize the temperature can get higher, and it is. The film also poses the question of what can you do? I mean, at this point, when fascism is fully fledged, you cannot do anything to stop it. It becomes beyond the ability for one person to be courageous or heroic enough to topple or dismantle this sort of system. And that's what's so scary about just giving pass after pass and not drawing lines when the lines need to be drawn. This is a legal procedural film that seeks to educate us on why procedure itself is so important. We're gonna be serious about having a justice system as a pillar of democracy. We can't be flimsy with that. If we're going to increase the authority and the power of an agency such as ICE to the point where we're cracking down on people who speak out against the actions of the United States, making that an arm under the executive's direct control, we are veering into that lane. And I know the US is not the only country that is going in this direction. It's happening all throughout Europe. Scaring people over immigration in order to justify eroding democratic institutions that protect individuals, and eroding the guardrails which protect one person from having too much power. This kind of film can help us be vigilant. And I just thought it was very well done. I know it's going to be a little slow paced for some, and they may feel like, yeah, the film's kind of obvious, like, of course, you know, I'm on this side. But I felt like it went the extra mile in its attention to detail and dramatizing the way that people have to speak and, like, the language that they're forced to use in these kind of scenarios to avoid repercussions. I would give Two Prosecutors an 8 out of 10. I know that turned into a little bit of a political rant, but I think that makes sense to do for a film like this. I imagine the filmmaker's not just making these films to just be a piece of history that we just nod at and then, you know, keep on our way. They should be vehicles for discussion. So I thought it was appropriate to introduce that discussion. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Is your country playing footsies with fascism?